Well, I think that JM4N would be happy to know that I finally got my hair right.
So that's why we're so late. 45 minutes on a single strand.
It takes a lot of work, but what's that?
Am I visible? Am I here? Yes, I exist. We exist. Believe.
We do exist. Let me get myself squared away here. Steve, you can go ahead and talk about what we're going to do while I fix this green screen situation.
Well, we are going to be doing Debate Roulette presented by Jammy Sizlo. Jammy, thank you very much for all you've done for this channel and for the software that we'll be using on this. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be having at least 2, maybe 3 discussions. Our first one, we're going to pick the topic and then pick 2 people to come in and debate on that topic. The second one, we might do the exact same thing, but the third or the second, depending on how this goes and on time constraints, if Shannon Q wants to have her own topic, we will allow her to pick that one separate, and then we'll spin to find out who wants to debate her, because she has frustrations today. And if she wants to get them out, we'll allow her to do that. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. The second debate. Let's get one regular out of the way, and then we'll have Shannon come on with a topic, and then we'll spin for who wants to debate. So Shannon, if you're listening, get your topic ready and let Steve know, and then we'll spin for you a person.
She says bring
it. Huh?
She says bring it, but she has to figure out a topic on which to bring it on.
Yeah. That's what we need. Thanks to both Davids for getting us all set up, and once again, thanks to Jammy. Debate Roulette will forever be presented by Jammy Sizlo, so cool deal. Let's see. Yes. If you're going to come on and debate, you need to be in Discord or leave your Skype name. The voting form is in the description. That will ask you which platform you're going to be using. Audio only through Discord. If you're going to be using a webcam, you need to come through Skype. So just keep that in mind. And without further ado, we will put up the wheel for the various topics to see what our first topic will be. Huh. How about that, Steve?
Nice.
There's our beautiful FAP wheel. Did we land on the moon?
Wow. You know what? I was wondering what that was going to end up on. I was hoping it was going to be this, but you never know, right? So
the odds were forever in our favor on that. Now we'll put the real wheel up real quick and spin for a topic. More of a little tongue in cheek there. I thought it was funny. So I believe we've got a couple new things on there from the next to the last time we did it. The last time we spun the wheel, it was a really good show. No dumpster fire yet. Maybe tonight is the night. But we will put up that regular wheel and then find out a real topic for us to go on. Alrighty. Spin that FAP wheel. It's quick today. Last time he was in a lull, I think. All right. Is free press valuable to our society? That's good. All right. Now we'll spin again and get a backup topic.
That's actually a really good one.
It is. It goes along with the one that we had after the debate the other night. All right. Is homosexuality a choice? Okay. What do you think, Steve? Which one would be the best one to go with?
Well, honestly, we've done the second one kind of somewhat, but I would be more interested in the first one. However, I can go either way.
Sure. All right, let's go that. Is free press valuable to society? So you may now click the form, go vote. You have 3 minutes to do that.
My only concern is that somebody who is arguing against this would have to have a really good reason why to think that the press should be limited in what they're able to do.
Yeah, I don't see anybody voting against this.
Yeah,
I've been wrong before.
I tell you what, how about we do this? If we don't give any in about a minute on this particular one, then we'll just do the other one.
Sure.
That way we don't waste 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anything new with you, Steve?
No, not really. You know what? After yesterday, I've just been doing my thing, I guess. So, you want to tell them about the analytics from yesterday, though?
The what?
The analytics.
What about them?
How high they were.
Oh, yes. Thanks to some recent events, mainly with the controversy with yours truly, we have hit an all-time record of views yesterday. It spiked almost double. So maybe I need to lie about more things that we did, Steve.
You know what? We could just turn this into a lying channel. We could become like Alex Jones. How about the way to do that? We just lie about everything. We'll hit 1 million subs by the end of the year.
We need to find a product line to push, like brain trust.
We could always do some kind of like woo stuff. I don't know, selling some kind of like medicinal water or something. I don't know.
But for those of you who are regulars, we apologize for the latest distraction. It's over, and we've said what we're going to say, and that's going to be the end of that. We're not going to be taking time away to deal with people who believe the Earth's flat and lie on a daily basis to challenge my integrity or anybody else's. So we said what we said. That's it.
I don't think we should waste any time on it, to be honest with you.
Nope.
Oh, we got people that want to argue on this. Looks like we might have. Do we have a debate? We have a debate.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That'd be good. Let's get those names on there. I'm surprised.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
I guarantee you the person voting against has or plans to have a MAGA hat in their future.
Wow.
Has to. Fake news.
Or it could be Jeranism.
That would be. I would have to kick the other person out then. Jeranism is welcome to play debate roulette. That would actually be kind of interesting.
Well, if he wants to come in and debate the first topic, I'm happy to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, make that happen.
All right.
Okay, so you want to wait a few more minutes to see if anybody else wants to join? Is that what we're doing? Okay, so
not if we have a debate. No.
Well, there might be other people who want to take the other side, but I say let's just go for what we got.
Yeah. I say hallelujah.
Hallelujah. We're already running late, so let's just make it happen.
All right.
How many people do we have for the no, and how many people do we have for the yes, Dave?
None. David looks like he's scrambling around frantically now.
He says,
do you know where you are, David?
You're not on the moon, David.
I was just talking with the people on the. It looks like we got two people. They're going to both be on the Discord.
You're not on the moon because no one ever went there.
We don't really need a wheel for this one because somebody backed out and acquiesced to someone else. So
all right, perfect. So there's no second wheel that we need to spin for a person. We've got a debate. Two people. Let's get them in here and make it happen.
Yeah. Give me 1 sec.
All right.
I can tell you this though. I believe that we haven't went to the Mars yet. And I believe that we haven't gone to Jupiter, so if you want to like take that and run with it, that's fine.
Steve, how dare you make such controversial comments?
I know. I'm always living on the edge. You know me. I play it safe.
But yeah, can you ask JM4N if my hair looks okay though? I want to make sure that.
Yeah, JM4N, does his hair not look perfect? Because we spent an hour with gel and product and combs and. We had to get there with fingernail clippers just to get the one that was just sticking out.
Fuck you, Steve. By the way, we do appreciate. Send a big thank you to our Patreons. We are having a Patreon hangout this Saturday at 4. So if you are a Patreon, the link for that will be in the Patreon community and on Discord. So plan on coming in and having a chat with us. We had a good time last time. It was about a 2-hour hangout, and we just talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. And we ask that the patrons that do come in bring what your favorite thing or episode was and your least favorite thing or episode was about the show, because we do want to hear mainly the ones that you don't like so that we can make sure that we are giving you guys what you want. Also, any super chats during the show will be read by Steve in between debates. So keep that in mind. All right. Are we good to go? Okay. Hellsteed Trotsky. Are you for or against?
You're for?
For, although currently on the stream I'm showing is both sides.
However it's pronounced, is saying no.
He's for. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And that means Musavino. There he is.
Yes,
right,
I'm
Mr.
here
Vino,
and I
you're
will
against,
be
correct?
going against the free press.
Steve, are you hearing anybody?
Nope.
Oh boy.
Is he on Skype? Is he coming in on Skype? Musavino?
They're all in Discord, I think.
I am
They're on
here.
Discord.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm on the Discord.
Do we hear an audio?
Yes, I can
We
hear
do
you.
not hit Discord, sir. God. Please don't punish us, God. Now I hear echo.
Okay, Hellsteed Trotsky.
Test.
Okay, I hear him. And I hear me twice.
Kind of hearing
That's
an
actually
echo
a-
there.
That's actually a really good thing, I think.
We're getting a lot of echoes.
Yes. Yep. So no streaming
It's
background.
off on my side at least.
Okay. All right. But I have to say I like the fact that I can hear myself twice, Steve. I think we should implement that, don't you?
It's a little disconcerting, actually.
Oh.
So how is this going to work? We listen to Discord and then nobody can say anything because it's going to get echoed.
We could try switching to Skype. I've got Skype.
I think I don't hear an echo anymore. I
No,
think
I
we're
don't
good.
either.
Okay, so let's get this straight. Hellsteed Trotsky, you're for free press, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hearing
Mr.
a
Dino,
terrible
that means you're
echo.
against.
It's hard to even understand what people are saying.
I can't hear anyone either.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
it's very choppy. I think the problem is with Discord.
All right.
So we have them in the Skype call instead?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there might be some kind of latency issue between Skype and Discord. And yeah, damn it, Discord. It works great. Hey, Discord works great for straight streaming. Don't get me wrong. But for some other things, it doesn't seem to integrate very well. Have you noticed that?
Why does it got to be straight streaming, Steve?
Because we have a heteronormative society.
Ah,
Yeah.
here.
Like you never go straight. You always go forward. When you're driving. You don't ever go straight. You just go forward.
But the opposite of straight is fabulous.
Well, I'm fabulous. So
You can't use that word.
I told you I got in special permission to use that word.
So while we wait on them to come in through Skype, let's talk about last night and the rumors that I came back into the after show. Because
that wasn't rumors. We had an after show on my channel last night, and Kyle came back in, which he doesn't remember coming back in, but it was
really don't.
hilarious. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. He comes back in, and I don't know what was the deal, but it was funny.
when you said that, I thought that you were that you were messing with me, but I went back and listened, and I got a little.
Oh, so you actually believe me? You didn't call me a liar?
Yeah, shocking, isn't it?
Amazing how that works, right?
I honestly don't remember coming in there last night, but I did, and
yeah, you're all coming in. Yeah, you're all coming in there praising Jesus, and talking with the one about how you're now a Calvinist.
It was a new strain called Holy Roller. It makes sense. It makes sense. But yeah, that was some. My brother's from L.A. and hits up the dispensaries a lot, and so he let me try some. Oh man, it was a lot stronger than I expected, and there for a while, like I was sitting in the couch, and I honestly thought that my body was becoming one with the sofa. It was a really weird experience. Okay.
Yeah, you're just like melting with it.
Yeah, it was very, very odd. Coming up though this week, we've got tomorrow. Alex Botten will be with us. He just finished his book, where he has it's like an autobiography, but from the point of view of your inner self. Like when you have a conversation with someone or somebody does something to you, and what you say isn't necessarily reflective of what you're thinking. Your thinking doesn't really have a filter on it. What you might cuss somebody out in your mind, but you wouldn't say that out loud. Kind of like a lot that happens with me and Steve. Like I'll say things like, good morning, or that was a good joke, Steve. But in my head, I'm going, God, he just gets cornier and cornier every single time.
Dad jokes.
So this is a book from that point of view, and it affects people that are in his life now and people that have been in his life before, friends, family, and he's just risking it all to put it out there. So we're going to find out if it's affected anybody so far. I think only a few people have read it. I've actually read it. It's really good. It's gripping. You would think that reading about somebody's life that you may not know, because I don't really know him all that well either, just through our couple of interactions prior. We did an interview with him back in February when he was halfway through with the book, and I finished the rest of it a couple weeks ago, and it is really good. So that'll be cool to have him on tomorrow. All right, I see Hailsteed Trotsky and Musavino. Are you here? Yes.
They're joining now.
Okay, I see Musavino. There we go.
Oh, I hear something.
Okay. I think he's in. All right. Okay. Good deal. All right, folks. Sorry about that, but some kinks you can't really work out until you get started. We recently switched back to the software where we could actually do this particular show because there's a lot of moving pieces that work with it. So we had to rebuild it from the ground up. And I see all four. Yeah.
Just as a check, can you hear me here?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Musavino, can you talk?
Yeah, I can. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
cool.
Sounds good. Sounds much
Musavino, I'm shocked at this.
No way.
I can't wait to hear your reasonings.
Yeah, this ought to be really good. So you want to tell them the time constraints and
well,
how they're
we're going to do
this?
It starts with a 5-minute timer, and then we're going to go straight into a 15-minute discussion. Sound good? You're gonna have the first round. The first 5 minutes is for you guys to introduce yourselves and the your position on the topic, which is a free press valuable to a society? So that'll give you enough time to introduce your position, and then we will open it up for you guys to have a back and forth. We just ask that you don't talk over each other. Let the other person finish their sentence so that the audience doesn't hear a bunch of garbled nonsense. Cool?
Well, hello. My name is Trotsky Online, and I am here to debate the topic of whether free speech and free press is valuable to a society. I support that opinion. My primary reason for this is that in the silencing of the opposition's opinions, you create a self-fulfilling prophecy where only one possible stance can be correct. And as such, you can never move forward as a society in viewing different alternatives. I will now pass it to the opposition.
Oh, you still have 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. Are you sure?
I thought that was for both of us to talk. I'm just
no. You
talk.
have the whole 5. You have the whole first 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Oh dear. Well, in that case, I should definitely not go first because I do not know what I'm even arguing against.
All right. Well, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pass it over to Musavino, and then we'll open up the discussion. Y'all can have a back and forth that way.
There you go.
Okay, Musavino.
Yes.
It is your time to introduce yourselves, along with why you don't think a free press is valuable.
Okay. I'm Musa Vaino. I come from Finland, and actually, President Trump was just here for some kind of summit with President Putin, and I think what happened here in our country really shows the value of free press, so to say. So we have a free press, but I would argue that the free press is only as good as the people who use that power. And we have the situation actually happening here that our biggest newspaper called Helsingin Sanomat printed this kind of comparison. They usually have like these identical twin type of pictures, and they had President Trump compared to a pig. So they don't look alike. It was just this kind of a very low political attack on people you don't like. But that is my main argument here is that we might have a free press, but if the press is very biased on one opinion, it doesn't actually help with the freedom of speech. It actually hinders it. And it's in a way that we have a very, our press in Finland is very, they are very left-leaning and they share opinions. And now the situation is that we can't have an actual discussions about many interesting things we should have. For example, immigration, because the media kind of any anti-immigration argument, they kind of slam it as being racist and they shut down the conversation. And they don't I would like to have a press that would bring up information so that the public can decide on whatever side they want to be on, but it is not happening here. You can only see that they are just pushing their agenda, and it's actually like people are getting more tribalist to each other. It actually it's harder to have a political discussion because the media is so biased, and there are half of people who believe in the media and half of people who think they are really biased. And I think that it can create this thing that the press will be abusing their power to report on incorrect stories. Just to give you kind of an example, what I can mean is that there was this story in America now that CVS apologizes after white manager calls police on black customer over coupon. So nowadays we have a lot of these stories that are framed in a racial way. Usually that white are being racist against blacks. And then that is to inform these power relations, how the situation goes. If you actually dig into the story, you see that it's not clear at all that there's anything racist happening at all. And it's also interesting that the customer is heterosexual and the white manager is gay. So you could even frame it in a way that heterosexual customer doesn't want to obey a gay for their legitimate claim that no, this coupon is false and you should get away from this store. You are not allowed to be here anymore. But just because a white person called on a black person, then it's immediately racism. It's immediately like this kind of a narrative of racism that is being pushed a lot in the West by the media. And I would argue that if you would just even at this time remove the media and just it would really make discussions between the public a lot more healthier. And that's my argument.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's throw 15 minutes on the clock. And we will start with Hellsteed. You can rebut what he just said, and then Musavino, if you can respond, and y'all can have a organic conversation back and forth. So I think we got the timer up there, and we'll start now.
Okay, just to clarify, I prefer being called Trotsky. That Hellsteed is actually just the name of the type of pony character. So, anyway, but to get into the discussion here, the first thing I say is this isn't going to be a very back and forth debate, because I mostly agree entirely with what the opposition just said. The only point of contention, I think, was the perhaps misunderstanding that occurred about what the meaning of a free press actually is. So to me, when you define free press, you have to throw in to some degree a sense of objectivity. You can't really just have a completely biased press. At that point, you have a propaganda machine rather than a reporting agency. And so, if what the opposition is talking about a lot in Finland is, happening, I think, in a lot of different places. I see it, from stories from England. I see it in my country, which is the United States. It's a lot of left-wing media gets pushed really heavily through the media. And I actually, to some degree, at least in my country, think it actually pushes the argument the other way. It pushes the argument more towards the right and away from the left, because the arguments that get shown really widely and publicly are just not very popular at this point. I think there's a pretty strong opposition to political correctness and a want to drive towards real liberty of expression. And so I guess my opinion is that free speech or freedom of the press is really dependent upon having some measures and qualifiers to reporting. The benefit of free press, though, is that if you go too far with that, where you eliminate the ability to report, or you eliminate through a great deal of regulation and restrictions, you can end up where you already have to pick a truth in order to be able to report on it. And so one of the reasons that you have the freedom of speech or the freedom of press rights is so that if you do have a particular bias and leaning, you don't end up being caught in a web of there already has to be one truth. What I would say is probably the real negative incentive that leads to a lot of what me and the opposition both see going on is more what sells. So I think there's a lot of negative market incentive to bring about the things that we're both seeing. What are your thoughts on that statement so far?
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with the market incentivizing. It's basically that no one wants to read positive stories, and then negative stories get more like press time, and then it's one part of this very big problem. And yeah, it's interesting when you say, maybe mistakenly or maybe not, but you many times say freedom of speech when you are talking about freedom of press. And just like my argument really is that the freedom of press might obstruct the freedom of speech, like what is happening in our country. But yeah, I would have to agree with a lot that you said here. Like I don't really want to go to nitpick any specific little thing, because I think we mostly agree on this topic. So I don't have any major contention on it, and like I mean, you seem to kind of give this to me, and I will accept it.
I guess there's one point is I will clarify the reason why, to me, freedom of speech and freedom of press blur together. The thing that has really changed, I think, since the old days of freedom of press is that we see a lot more of independent, individual people engaging in this and reaching much wider audiences than was really ever before possible. So, you know, like, look at Tim Pool, look at Sargon of Akkad. These are just individual people who are, you know, doing reporting, searching, and are, you know, pretty major news sources for large groups of people now. That wasn't really possible in the past. So, to me, some degree, the freedom of press is ultimately a version of freedom of speech. I do fully agree with your statement, though, that when you create a mass narrative, it really does get in the way of an individual person's point of views. So, for instance, you know, CNN versus that one person that they threatened. Sorry, I don't remember the name, but there was a story that I read recently that was a CNN reporter basically called up and effectively threatened someone who'd done some sort of story about CNN. That kind of action, I think, really does harm both the press primarily and people's trust in the press due to their continuing abuses of power, and the individual person's ability to feel that they can go against the rub of the common grain and discuss those things that are not politically kosher to discuss, which I think does a couple of things. One, it pushes conversations into effectively what I would like to term safe debates. These would include things like gun control's a really, really common one. Everyone wants to debate gun control, but it's because it is politically acceptable to debate, whereas like a more controversial topic like positivism would be much more uncomfortable for a public audience. And so I think that's definitely one of the negative effects from the abuse of mass media power, is creating this aura that there is a common voice and that it is in power.
Yes, and I would, of course, there is kind of this murky water that, like, if you have freedom of press versus, I wouldn't take freedom to block, like, I would still allow Sargon of Akkad and Tim Pool do their work. But actually, it's interesting because just recently there was this YouTube story about YouTube, that YouTube is now giving like millions and millions of dollars to push the CNN and other mainstream media on YouTube. So they are actually trying to now advertise and push this mainstream media, which I'm against, so that Tim Pool and Sargon will suffer. Probably they won't be so easy to find in the search window, or maybe they will have some other things there. They will actually give like some kind of coaching to the big mainstream media outlets so that they can make better arguments and make better videos and whatever. And that's like totally backwards opposite, because I would like to see them support the small creators and not these enormous houses that have millions and millions of dollars. But it's just that they seem to be aligning with the YouTube or Google's political views, and they want to make this kind of last push to kind of stamp out the opposition. But I really hope that people like Tim Pool and Sargon will win and the mainstream media will not rule anymore.
Well, to answer that, I would simply say it's a question of much simpler question than that. If YouTube and Google is dealing with CNN and other money corporations, it's all a question of money in a capitalist society, particularly in the United States. Everything runs around money pretty much, and so for people like Sargon and Tim Pool to survive, it really depends on getting the viewership that they have and the money reserves that they have. And it's simply a fact that small creators on all fronts, it's not even just politics, small ag producers, small bolt producers, it really is, there's an economy of scale where if you have the spending power, you can push things around. And it's bad, but it is the particular system that we have here, at least in the United States, and that's one reason why I think we need to push a lot of political voice and willpower to protect those smaller entities that don't have that kind of allure to the profit market.
Yes, I would like to also raise this that
because especially with like Sargon, where he spends all of his time and effort, making content so that his millions of followers can watch it. It's really that if he ever went to jail for something, like we saw with the Tommy Robinson incident, all of that income is so unstable. It is entirely based on finicky YouTube policies and people's gifts through Patreon. It's not like having a job with a corporation where you get a paycheck at the end of the week. It's just not that reliable. And I think there's a lot to deplatforming, as you mentioned earlier, where you can deplatform someone effectively just by making it so they can't live on it, because people need to live in order to actually express an opinion. And so it's sort of like a soft censorship.
Yes, and then also if you are really talking a lot about these politics and other controversial issues, it's not only that you need money to survive, but it's that you basically become unhireable. No one will hire you because mainstream media has written 20 hit pieces on you that are really gross and have such odd indictments that you can't even defend from those. And I think a lot of creators are coming to that realization that they are basically unhireable if they ever don't make it in the news or YouTube business. And that is also one thing I would partly blame the mainstream media and their very odd behavior right now.
I guess I would not lay the blame of that at the feet of the media. The blame of that simply goes to large companies are not very good at taking political risks or stances. I think that a lot of why we see big business drift towards the PC side of the political spectrum is not due to any particular interest on the interest of the company to protect those viewpoints. It is more of a self-protection viewpoint, in that the company does not really want to get the negative raps and reduced sales of a political fiasco. And if we know the left is good at one thing, it is creating fiascos and lots of noise. So you have to be bold as a company to literally just take the Twitter hate storm and hire someone who has an expressed political view that would be viewed as something like sensical. So it's very much like the appeasement of Adolf Hitler in a way, in that they keep making more and more demands, and people keep concessing or making concessions to them over and over and over again, just like the Starbucks incident. And so as this goes along, it's just going to get worse until it can't get worse anymore, and it will just become impossible, or something will break first. But I think it's a lot in that political corporations do not have a lot of political spine, because it's all tied to sales.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I would also like to say another reason for that is also that the right-wingers can't do a boycott to save their lives. They can't. They don't want to politically discriminate on products they like to use, basically, or something like that. And the left-wingers are much more likely to ethically not buy some product for whatever reason.
Right. It's very much based on the market sales, and it's something because I'm actually trying to start a small business myself at the moment. It's something that I think is a major problem is the lack of ability for corporations to be politically isolated. Example being the recent cake incident. I mean, there's a point where it doesn't matter how small you are or how inconsequential you think you are. If a baker ends up in the Supreme Court because he refused a customer one day, and has 5 years. I mean, how are you going to survive and keep a business going? It's hard enough to start a small business anyway, just from the time commitment and all of the work that goes into it to even get off the ground. You end up in court battles right out of the gate, and there's just no way you're going to survive. You're
and that's time.
Okay.
Excellent. Before we wrap this up, let me say to Sandring, I'm glad that you're feeling conspiratorial tonight. I appreciate that big time. Thanks guys. That was a fantastic debate. I'm still surprised that Musavino, though, that you don't think a free press at all would be beneficial to a society. Seems like that's in many cases the only way it keeps them in check.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the very nature of a free society to have something that's out there that allows journalistic neutrality? That's the whole nature of a free society, isn't it?
Yeah, well, okay, I would say that I would have people can blog and make videos and whatever, but just this mainstream press, maybe I'm kind of diluting this argument a little bit because I would allow people have free opinions and whatever, but I'm just that the free press, the current press we have in the Western world is very biased, and we should be without it.
Oh, okay, that's a good argument, but it's a different argument.
Yeah, let me ask him a question here that stems back to the beginning. Can you confirm or deny that you own a Make America Great hat?
I fortunately don't have that.
Thought you had that one, dude. I thought you had that one.
You did.
I have this here.
Well, Trotsky, thank you for coming on and debating. I hope you enjoyed your time, and you as well, Musavino.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night. Sure.
And Trotsky enjoyed the conversation the other night.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. I believe Shannon now is coming in.
I believe so.
Get in here, girlfriend. What's she gonna be
coming in now?
She all I know is she's feisty today. She's ready to go on the attack. Good so deal. Whoever's going up against her, you better have your ducks in a row and better be just as feisty, because this is going to be whatever amazing dumpster fire or really good civil conversation, either or. I can't imagine Shannon having a dumpster fire, but then again, anything's possible because she's feisty
come on.
today.
Not see Thoughts not having a dumpster fire.
Oh, Thoughts fired. Thoughts fired.
Get her in here.
Which side of the conversation is she going to
put her on the check mark?
Yeah, put her on the check. She's pro for we have two positions that we're going to talk about, or two topics, and then she's pro on both of them. So,
should Thoughts get more respect?
So while we're waiting for her to come in here, you want to bring up the two topics and?
Oh, there we go.
Her? Oh, we'll wait for her. Should Thoughts get more respect?
She's here. Hey, Shan.
Don't diss the Thoughts.
Oh my god.
Hey, Shan.
Hi.
Oh, I love that. Are you fedoring it up tonight?
You're goddamn right I am.
Oh, she is good to
go. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Right.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Do you want to introduce your two topics?
Oh, I sent them both to Steve. I'm not pro. Well, I'm not really pro both of them. The first topic.
That's how you word it, I guess. The two topics are this.
Okay.
Because she had three initially. We narrowed it down. And who's beating up on their keyboard?
Not me. Not it.
Keyboard.
David,
Hand
mute
check.
yourself.
Hand check. Oh my God.
Oh, they're saying. Hold on. They're saying that they can't see Shannon.
Oh, they're missing out on the fedora.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm wearing a fedora. Nothing.
Just put her on the check mark. That's fine. It doesn't.
We can word these either way.
Yeah.
Okay, so the two topics that she had brought to our attention is one is feminism necessary? I'll get it out. Is feminism necessary?
That's good.
That's a wide topic. That's a wide topic. The other one is, should contraception be illegal?
Yeah, and I'm calling that. Contraception should not be illegal.
How about we combine them and say
that one we would change to be not be illegal.
Contraception and feminists be illegal.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Shannon, which do you feel that you would rather discuss? They're both really good. So it's which do you feel that you would or which do you prefer?
I'm open to either. What are the contenders the most interested in? What's the most contentious, do you think?
Yeah, let's go to the live chat. Live chat, which would you rather push one if you'd rather hear what was it? Are feminazis necessary?
That's it. That's the one. Feminazi thoughts.
Yeah. Press 1 for feminazis, 2 for contraception.
All right, let's do this. I want to know who votes for feminazi thoughts.
Right.
I want to know how many people are going, what's a thought?
Oh, don't Google it.
Don't Google it. Don't Google
right.
thoughts.
Ones. Looks like.
Ooh, well, no. This is tough. I'm going to say slightly marginally one so far.
Yep. I'm seeing a lot of ones scroll by on my phone.
Now ones are ones are definitely. Yeah.
Are feminists necessary?
12s won't count, so 1 and 2 together.
12 you're confused.
That's not going to help.
There's always somebody that puts a 3. Okay, so let's go to the voting form.
Right.
And put in your information. Now you have 3 minutes. We'll chat with Shannon and see what she's been up to for these 3 minutes while we wait, and the voting will start now. So Shannon, what's been going on?
How's your channel?
Oh, good, I guess. Pretty good.
Finally got content on it now.
I do. I have loads of content
Took
on
how
it.
long?
Well, I posted. Well, I had 1,200 subscribers when I posted. It took a while, but now I'm posting pretty consistently. I'm doing a good job. I do a lot of research, so it takes a little while. It can sometimes take up to 2 weeks for me to get the research compiled to make sure I'm doing justice to the video.
You are the only person on YouTube that had not one video up before you hit 1,200 subscribers. That's insane.
I doubt that's ever happened before.
It can't happen.
I said she should have gone for 100,000 before she had a single video, because that would have been something newsworthy.
Thursday we've got you coming back, and Jammy.
Ooh, I'm coming back?
You didn't know that? With Mr. Atheist? Didn't you talk to Mr. Atheist about?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
I've had a couple of days. Sorry.
I'm glad that I said it then.
I am.
Okay, I'm getting word that the voting form is not working, Dave.
Yeah, which one are we putting up for the topic?
Everyone's scared.
The feminists.
How are we wording it?
Are feminists necessary? All right, guys, give him 1 second, and he'll get that voting form coming up. So we have to go back and have that entire conversation over again, Shannon. Right. Let's pretend like make the expressions good.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Okay, guys, you should be able to. Is it working now, Dave?
It will be in just a moment.
Yeah. Give us 1 second, guys.
It should be now.
Okay, now you can go vote. 3 minutes. So Shannon, how's it been going? What you been up to?
Been going.
That's channels.
My channel's great. The last video I posted is tracking really, really well. It took me a lot of research to do it. The last video that I did was on the common misconception that it's a theist apologetics argument that's used quite frequently, that being an atheist makes you intrinsically unhappy. So I compiled as much psychological research as I could to dispel that myth and pointed out that it was correlational data, and did my best to present it in as unbiased a way as possible, and that's tracking pretty well. And so it's going really well. I'm enjoying it.
What's the next video about? You have that yet?
Yes, actually, the next video I've started doing research on the reasons and implications of hiding your atheism. That's going to be what the next video is on.
Interesting. You know, who would be good for that is a genetically modified skeptic. How long did he? Was he a closet atheist until he came out?
Yeah, he only just came out to his friends and family. Yeah, just recently, within the last month, he finally fully out to everybody.
Yeah.
What about Paul? How's Paul doing?
Well, Paul is very much out. Very much out, but it took him a while as well.
I tell you what, I'll make a counter video about why people hide their agnosticism.
Why people should hide their agnosticism.
Exactly. I was getting ready to say, who is hiding their agnosticism?
You hide it so well, Steve.
Hey, at least I'm not the only one agnostic around here anymore. I feel like I've got compadres. I made a friend. Yeah.
Who is this agnostic crush?
David.
David, you're agnostic?
No, David F.
Hey, okay, we're looking for a new producer, guys.
Philosophically agnostic. Philosophically agnostic.
What the hell?
Oh, I thought you were philosophically agnostic. No.
No. Here we go with another philosophical agnostic. Does that mean you don't have an opinion on philosophy?
I'm sorry. I confused you. I was Surus.
Oh my
I'm
God.
not Surus. I'm not even.
You're the other short guy.
Hey, that's an insult.
I'm not short. I'm 6'2". There's nothing short about me.
Let's talk about the roast, though. How do you feel about having to compete against your boo?
My boo. Oh God. Fine. I'm gonna destroy him.
I'm sorry, Shannon. You didn't understand the first time I said it. How do you feel about having to argue
I don't know
with?
What you're talking about? What are you talking about? We don't say a boot where I'm from. We say about.
Are you going full stop on this video they're gonna be doing?
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull out that guy's weave. I'm telling you.
Because I tell you,
so ratchet.
You better pull out all the stops. You better not. I'm gonna go easy. No.
All right, guys. Voting's over. So we will put the names on a wheel. Okay, cool. We have a debate.
All right.
So someone thinks that
you're saying that it is necessary, Shannon.
Yeah. We need. Well, yeah. Shannon, you think they're necessary, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we need somebody who does not think it's necessary.
Well, we've got two people that already spun on the last round, and the other person is a yes. So it looks like you'd be debating pragmatic culture.
Oh no!
How about that?
No!
How about that?
Yeah.
Get in here, pragmatic culture.
Bring it on, bud.
Right now.
So do you want to explain your reaction there for the people who
pragmatic culture have had some interactions. We've worked through our problems, so we had private discussion, and it went okay. But pragmatic culture did a begone Thot tweet, and I was the theme, and I took it.
Oh shit!
But, yeah.
He's the guy that originated that.
Round 4 of it's so hard to keep track of who's called me a Thot. I know.
Oh man, I did. Okay, that just connected with me. Oh, this is gonna be good.
It's a pretty exciting.
You know, I thought this would be a good debate.
All right, I think this is their Skype.
All right, we're getting pragmatic culture in here. I think he's here.
Oh, this will be
wow. How about that?
This will be fun.
Maybe there is a God.
Yeah.
All right. So Shannon in all her thoughtness, glory, and a fedora will face off against the originator of the Thought Gate.
Oh gosh.
Well, I thought he was in here.
Yeah, one sec. I'm gonna
okay.
On Discord just to bring them in. 1 sec.
Yeah, so guys, Shannon will be back with us on Thursday along with Jammy and Mr. Atheist to discuss should voting be mandatory. I'm going to vote absolutely not, because there are so many people that should not vote, should not ever get near a voting booth, and that was demonstrated this past election. So no, it should not be mandatory.
Actually, it was demonstrated when Red's rhetoric and Sharon is were on.
Oh,
Oh, was that bad? I didn't get.
Thoughts fired. Thoughts fired.
That happens when I'm around. Sorry.
You can never run out of thought
No,
puns.
it's never ending. The gift that really keeps on giving. It does.
And it's so odd to me because Shannon, you're literally one of the nicest people on the planet, and
They don't like me.
the way that you just get shit is so unbelievable to me. It's crazy.
I know. Well, I do post pictures with my face in them, so that's on me.
Well, okay then. It makes sense.
Social media like a whore.
It's just like Scientist Mel. Poor Scientist Mel, when she posted that picture of her at the gym.
Yeah.
That was strange.
You would never go to unless you're a creep. You would never look at that picture and go, stupid Thot showing her tits everywhere.
The funniest part, I didn't even remember the picture until she brought it up, and I'm like, you mean something in that timeline from back when? She's like, yeah. I'm like, it was something I didn't even think twice of, and yet people made a big issue about it.
It's crazy. Do we have pragmatic culture?
Anybody else?
David?
Yeah, I think that we got them coming in now.
Sprinting to his computer.
Okay, there we go.
Is this it?
Yes, I got. There's a message for me in the chat that says, "Careful, Kyle. Somebody will hold that. You saying there might be a god against you." Oh, I know. Trust me. Totally fine.
That's gonna be a supercut on somebody's channel.
So they'll wait till the controversy with me now dies down, and then they'll bring that up. Okay. So pragmatic culture, you're here.
I am. Hello.
All right. Pragmatic thought tweets. Can we discuss this for a second? So you're the originator of the thought meme.
Yes, and I'd like to clarify some things. I told Shannon
you would.
Please do.
I told Shannon this in our DMs.
Yeah.
But the tweet was not like directed at her per se. It was more a commentary on the photo she had just taken, which was something, fairly provocative in like the yoga clothes. And it's like, you slapped the dog filter on that with like the tongue in the ears, and you've basically got like your Insta thought thing. Like that's what that was. It wasn't a comment about her, more or less.
Oh my God. It was a joke about how I didn't want to exercise or that I was mad that I had to exercise because I wanted to be in a bathing suit this summer, which I haven't really put on much yet because I need to do more exercise. So I posted a picture of me lying on a yoga mat, like fully dressed. Like I wasn't even in yoga shorts. I mean, I was wearing pants. I had no makeup.
She looked like shit.
Sweating all over.
I'm kidding.
At least
she could never look like shit.
At least we know now what.
It's just bizarre.
Ladies, if you're out there and you're aspiring to be a thought, all you need for your home thought kit would be yoga clothes, a filter of the dog on Snapchat, and
there you go. We can sell thought kits. There you go. That's our niche.
Yes.
We'll promote thought kits.
Okay,
We'll make you woke to thought. We'll have woke thoughts.
I do tutorials on YouTube now. I'm gonna change my entire channel. No more science, no more psychology, no more rational conversation. Just how to put a Snapchat filter.
And you know what?
And then
you will get you'll have 1 million subscribers by tomorrow if you do that. That's the
I was going to say it's like the influx of fans would be massive.
Yeah. So we're going to be discussing our feminist necessary. Shannon is taking the pragmatic cultures, saying they're not. So we will start. The first 5 minutes will be for Shannon to introduce herself, her channel, and explain why they are, and then we'll move to pragmatic culture. Shannon, when you're ready.
All right, so I'm Shannon Q. Nice to meet you, anybody who I haven't met before or interacted with. I am Shan_Q0 with 2 N's on Twitter, and my channel is called Shannon Q. And I discuss and look in depth into psychological implications and interests of atheists. And I also have, I just got some feedback. I'm hearing myself in my ears really loudly. Sorry. I also have live streams where after I put out a video, if I feel like there's a topic that needs some expounding upon or discussion, I'll invite people in, both Christians, atheists, and I'll even let Steve in there every once in a while to elaborate on
It's a very rare thing. It
is very rare.
Yeah, it's like a holiday or something.
Only when he begs me.
Oh, she likes it when I beg. Okay, that was creepy. I take that back.
Fair, I do. And
that's a Thot thing. Only Thots would get that one.
I know. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we do on my channel. If you'd like to check it out, please feel free and let me know what you think. I'm open to dialogue. My entire meaning for doing these things is because I want to help elevate the discourse and promote more productive conversations in this realm. So that's me. Hi.
Now you have the rest of the time to explain why you think feminists are necessary.
Okay, so one of the reasons that I brought this up is because I feel as though feminism as a whole has a stigmatization around it. I would classify myself as what I would call an egalitarian feminist. So what that means to me is that I believe in full equality of opportunity. Doesn't mean equality of outcome, it means equality of opportunity. That means that if a woman has the same capabilities as a man, they should have the same opportunity as a man. Now, I understand that there are sex differences. I understand that on a whole, biologically, like I would not want a 5 foot tall, 100-pound woman trying to carry me out as a firefighter if there was a fire, for example. I understand these things. However, the opportunity still needs to be there. I also do understand that there are issues, and everybody should understand that there are issues that are specific to women. Of course, there are issues that are specific to men as well, which is why they should have and do have men's rights activists who are advocating for their rights, because there are specific issues that pertain to women and specific issues that pertain to men, where our voices should be heard. And people who are women, in most of these instances, should be the ones who are speaking. Now, feminism now seems to have this sort of social justice connotation where it's men hating and it's men bashing, and people are saying, men are stupid and men are this and men are that. And that is counterproductive to what feminism is to me. And I would prefer to have this platform to advocate for what I think it should be and why I think it's necessary, so that I can contradict the damage that's being caused by the people that are hurting the image of feminists like me who are egalitarians. That's it.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Pragmatic culture. The Thot has laid down the gauntlet. It is now time for you to
Thot drop.
Thot drop.
Oh boy.
Can we please make that a thing?
It's a thing now. Hashtag
we at least need to get a sound effect for it, Dave. Can we find a sound effect for a Thot drop?
All right. The next 5 minutes is for you, Pragmatic Culture, to explain why feminists are not necessary.
Sure. Well, a lot to take to part there, because that was obviously the presentation of sort of the idealized what feminism ought to be and how it ought to go about achieving better reach for its issues and such. But I'm going to disagree with, I think, something that's a little bit more controversial, and I think this is going to cause a bit more of a stir. I'm going to disagree with the notion of egalitarianism specifically, only because I'm not one who believes in almost any type of equality. I'd say we have one equality amongst people, and that would be that we are all morally equal. We all have the same consideration. We should all have the same considerations when it comes to what is done to us, not being done to others, to simplify, sort of like the golden rule. But I don't think that this striving for equality in any field, be it of opportunity or just outcome of any kind, is going to lead to anything particularly useful, because equality of opportunity implies that there's still going to be some kind of level of control at some point. It's going to be implying that you have to force people into situations in which they have the opportunity to do something. Because obviously somebody like the rich billionaire kid who's grown up in like the Manhattan elite is going to have more opportunities than some kid who's grown up in some poor rundown suburb of Queens. And while you could argue that might be unfair, if the only solutions to that are going to be just as authoritarian or possibly worse as those that would guarantee the same outcome for them, because it's just a different level. Now, at the same time, what I would say is that I think a lot of the problems and a lot of the issues that have risen for women over the past century, half century or so, to address specifically the feminist side of the argument, are largely products of what second and third wave feminism have brought about themselves. I think they're crises of somewhat mental health issues, somewhat sexual issues, and I think it has a lot more to do with what some forms of feminism have advocated in the form of free love and sort of this sexual irresponsibility. Because when we look at the data in regards to things like this, we know not just women, but men who have more partners are more likely to be unhappy. They're less likely to have good marriages. They're more likely to divorce. They're more likely to be exposed to a whole variety of other different mental issues. And that's just on the sexual liberation front. Now, I think at the same time, you also see it where there's this sort of, in some fields of feminism, I can't say all feminism, but in some fields, there is also sort of this abolition of the family going on. And we see that that too has led to a decrease in happiness in women specifically, because there is a lot to be gained from just having a family. And it's a good sort of mental stabilizer, because even though there's a lot of emotional extremes, when you take the average, people with children do tend to be happier than those without. Again, that applies for both men and women. And so I just kind of rattled off a bunch of points. I don't really have a conclusion, but I'll just finish off there.
Well, to Shannon's point earlier, I believe that we now have an official "Drop It Like a Thought" sound that we will play for you guys now before we start the discussion. Okay, well, let me help you. There's a like a circle button with a sideways triangle. That's a universal symbol for play. Just tap that and it'll. Oh. Okay, well he'll get that fixed, and by the end of the discussion we'll play it. So hopefully, Shannon, you end on a "Drop It Like a Thought" noteworthy.
I plan on it.
Okay, so we'll put 15 minutes on the clock, and Shannon, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack there. So you touched on a bunch of subjects. So the first thing that I'm going to address is the fact that I feel as though the feminism that you're addressing isn't necessarily the feminism that I was attesting to, and what the type of feminism that I feel is necessary. You essentially sort of shifted the goalpost to say, yeah, okay, so I can sort of understand that. However, this type of feminism, the type that you distance yourself from, I don't like that, and I see the bad things that it's done. Now, I'll concede a lot of that. And in fact, I did in my opening statement concede a lot of that. That I outright said that is hurting the type of feminism that I feel is necessary. So I'm going to kind of brush past a little bit of that. Now, the equality argument, I think, is the one that's probably the most interesting. The one about the children, I feel like I could go on a tangent, so I'm not going to take that bait about, women having children makes them happy. That one I'm just going to push that one aside, and I'm going to focus on the egalitarian portion of it. Now, when I say equality of opportunity, essentially that means that if you are capable, you should be able to apply for that job. Now, you brought up somebody being a billionaire having better opportunities, or the child of a billionaire having better opportunities presented to them than somebody who is raised with, in a lower income family. Sure, that's going to happen to both sexes. Sure. I'm not talking about leveling the income gap to make those opportunities the same. What I'm talking about is, let's use the billionaire. If the billionaire has a daughter and a son, they should both have those same great opportunities that nobody else has. And if the lower class person has a daughter and a son, they should both have the same opportunities that people of that class group, let's say, and for the sake of your argument, to grant your argument, they should both have the same opportunities. Now, they may not both have the same skill set for an opportunity that they want, right? And that means that they won't get that job because they don't have that skill set, or they won't get that opportunity because they don't have the skill set required. But it should be the skill set that they're judged on, not the sex. That's the type of equality that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about leveling the field. I even mentioned that initially, and I felt like that was brushed over. I said, I don't want a 5 foot tall, 100-pound woman being a firefighter just because she's a woman and should have equal opportunity. I don't want that. I want women that are capable to have the same opportunities. That's what I mean. Are we doing back and forth? Because I'll keep going.
Yeah, no, we are.
Okay,
actually,
I'll see the floor to you then for a moment.
Before you respond, pragmatic culture, Dave, can we get that 15 minutes on the clock?
Oh, did I cheat?
Okay, all right. Now, pragmatic culture, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm sorry I didn't mean to try and shift goalposts there. It's just I have some trouble trying to identify this sort of idealized type of feminism that a lot of people try to strive for and say, this is the good feminism. I have trouble trying to find, examples of that because to me it seems like there are almost no real world examples of it per se, as like the feminism seems to have been hijacked by a lot of different extremist movements, or even those that aren't so extreme that just have one or two extreme positions. And so when I argue, I will try to argue against what you're stating, but if I reference real life examples, forgive me, I'm just trying to go off of what I've seen.
Okay. You said if I reference real life examples as though this isn't a real life example. I instantiate it, so I am a real life example. And I understand that in the environment that we're in the YouTube, Twitter world, where things are elevated and we're constantly inundated with those ridiculous examples to the point that we think they're the norm and they're harming the norm. The day-to-day is different than the social media environment. I just like to state that because I think that's what we're referencing as the norm.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't mean to imply that what you're saying isn't real. I would like, if you could, then I'd like to see like maybe name some type of movement that endorses specifically like the type of ideals you're talking about and perhaps something they've done. Because when I try to, I will try to argue against more specifically. Like I'll get to what you said about the the son and the daughter in the low income and the high income family again, and I'll get to that. But when specifically when it comes to the feminism point, I haven't seen, to my knowledge, any group that specifically advocates for something like that. And so I'm sorry if I'm trying to bounce around when I try to conjure up real life examples, but I will try to stick to the argument you're putting forth in that ideal you're looking for. But to get to the one with the children, like the children of the low income family and the children of the high income family, even there needs to be at least some amount of sort of, I don't want to say coercion, but there has to be some sort of forced suppression of preferences almost. Because sometimes, the kid from let's take the two kids from the high income family, like the son and the daughter. Okay. If they ostensibly do both have the same opportunities at that point because they're both the kids of some super rich people. But if in the process of going out to search for a job in the business world, if some employers just happen to have a preference, fair or unfair, for men, then the son of the billionaire may just happen upon more opportunities than the daughter, fairly or unfairly. Now, you can make the case that it's fair or unfair that those things happen, but in order to make it so that the daughter of the billionaire has the same amount of opportunities or the same quality of opportunities, whichever, that the son will have, it would require an elimination of personal preference to some extent. And if you wanted to go about doing that through some sort of advocacy, like I think you're proposing, then sure. But I oftentimes find it that advocacy leads to its own form of action in the form of legislation. For example, we have affirmative action. But if it were to be done where it was just a movement purely in the form of, say, something like a movement to change minds and instituted no legislation, which would result in the use of force, then I could endorse a movement like that, or at least find it less objectionable.
Okay, those are really fair arguments. Now, it sounds to me, if I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, that the issue that you have is that if this type of feminism were to be enacted, even this, I guess you would probably call this a soft version of feminism comparatively, where it's essentially just equality of opportunity and, advocating for issues that pertain specifically to women. You would be in a position where you would attempt to legislate to control for people's implicit biases. And that's a dangerous position. That I would agree with. I would agree that that's a dangerous position because you can't know what somebody's implicit bias is. You can't know if somebody sitting behind a desk has a preference for hiring men or hiring women. They may not even know that they have that preference. Now, some would argue that that's due to some sort of, there's societal implications to that, that people are socialized in a certain way to prefer people because of the archetypes that are affiliated with those people. Now, I understand that and I recognize it. I'm not arguing for a legislation of that. I'm arguing for, I suppose it would be more so, and you see it now with education. Like we're more involved in the education system. So we're showing aptitudes that we previously couldn't show because we didn't have those opportunities. Now, the reason that we're showing those aptitudes now is because we have those opportunities. We're in a position now where I wouldn't argue that it's unfair to women in most instances. A maintenance of what we have now would be my ideal. I don't think that we really need to legislate anything, but I think that we need to continue to advocate for that level of equality. Does that make sense to you? So I'm not arguing that somebody needs to say, okay, you need to hire exactly 50% men and exactly 50% women. I'm arguing that if you have hiring standards, those standards, if there are female applicants that meet those standards, they should be allowed through the application process in. They should be seen. If they're scoring higher on those aptitude scales, they should be the ones who are preferential over men who may have scored lower, and vice versa. If the men score higher on those aptitude scales, they had that equality of opportunity. However, they didn't measure up. The same could go for women. That is equality of opportunity. Now, you can't control for somebody's implicit bias. They could get all the way through that. There could be a man and woman sitting in front of somebody who's going to be doing the deciding on who's going to ultimately have that job. They could have an implicit bias that no one can control for. For people with red hair, it's not just men and women that we have implicit biases toward. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that the scale shouldn't be different, which I think you would argue for because you brought up affirmative action. And in those instances, the scales are different. Scales shouldn't be different. They should be the same, but we should maintain those opportunities.
Okay. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. So this is sort of where what the tiny little bit of the libertarian me is sort of coming out a little bit, just because I understand your point that if a woman is better qualified than a man, she should definitely be the one to get it. And, the capitalist businessman in me says, yeah, she's going to make you more money. Why wouldn't you hire her, stupid? But at the same time, if a business or some other sort of institution chooses to accept a lower standard in order to satiate their personal biases, I wouldn't have a problem to that, because I'm someone who strongly believes in freedom of association and private property rights still. And so even though I would, I personally believe that they would suffer the consequences of that action in the form of some sort of market reaction. Like if they're hiring less qualified people just to satisfy a bias, then their competitors who hire the more qualified people are going to make more money, and then that stupid idiot is going to get driven out of business. But at the same time, that stupid idiot, I believe, has the right to make that decision, because it is his business and it is his property, and he's the one who has the final say at the end of the day. Because I'm a very strong believer in property rights and freedom of association in that sense.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying there. Is that, that's that individual's choice. That individual's choice is to be biased or bigoted against a certain group of people, and he's going to pay the price ultimately, theoretically, in an ideal for that choice. Now, I would ask you, do you think that there is ever a case where, look at segregation, for example. That this was brought up with the whole cake baking thing. The argument of it was, those people who had separate portions of their restaurants for people who were African American as opposed to people who were Caucasian. That was their choice. Their business should have paid the price by that, but they didn't. It needed to be legislated in order to bring that equality forth, because there was such a bias that permeated the society. And until it was legislated, that bias wasn't able to be lifted. So those biases even those unjustified biases are able to permeate and perpetuate if we don't allow that equality of opportunity. Now, there's going to be one-offs. I mean, nobody's going to be standing in every office over the shoulder of everybody who's making a decision saying, she scored 1 point higher than him. Of course, you're going to be able to make decisions with impunity when it comes to those nuances based on your personal preference. But there's a need and a necessity through social pressure and to a certain degree legislation to allow for that equality of opportunity. Otherwise, I feel it'll start to slip away because those biases, those implicit biases that people have, they're not completely gone. I see it all the time. There's people who still, on a daily basis, call me an idiot just based on seeing my face without having ever interacted with me. Because I'm a girl. That happens still. People are judged based on their appearance. People are judged based on their sex. These things happen no matter what their aptitude is. And they don't get those opportunities because that. And they're socialized to believe that they don't deserve them. So I think it's necessary. You may argue otherwise. And if you want people to have that freedom, I would argue that they already kind of do. So what's the harm in advocating for and perpetuating a movement in society, and I'm not even talking about legislation, a movement in society that allows women to come to the forefront, have these types of conversations, and blow apart those biases so that people can see that they're unnecessary, old, and harmful.
Okay, so a couple things there, because there was a lot to unpack there. So first, to start with sort of the segregation period. It should be noted that not all of it was private businesses. Some of it was legislated through Jim Crow laws that businesses had to have certain features. And another portion is that market reactions did happen. Like the Woolworths counter protest, they didn't integrate because there was a law passed. They started to integrate because the protests surrounding their place of business was costing them a severe amount of money. And so they had to integrate there. The same happened with the Birmingham bus boycotts. The town was hemorrhaging money on the buses. And so they had to allow Black people to sit wherever they wanted. And so there is market reactions. And in a lot of ways, I believe that if that were the process that continued throughout the whole process of desegregation, there would be much less racial tension in the United States because it could all be said to be a voluntary de-escalation. Whereas when you legislated into law things like affirmative action, you now have the problem of certain whites in the South who feel almost vindicated because they needed to pass laws in order to get Blacks into the position they are. And now you have on top of that the modern social issue of several Blacks worrying about whether or not they're just a token, whether or not they truly were qualified to be in that position at that time. And it's funny because it's brought up by a lot of Black activists and Black Lives Matters type people. And my answer to them would be is if you don't want to feel like you're just here because of your skin color, then you should get rid of affirmative action. And then you'll know you were hired because you were qualified. But because of the laws that were passed and sort of the status quo, as you put it, that we're trying to enforce, they still have to sort of worry about that thought in the back of their mind. And so that's sort of the other point I would say is that the implicit biases that people have, none will ever be completely gone. But I think you and I would agree in that.
No, God, never.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of
people work.
Yeah, right. They're always going to be there. And I think what's best is to sort of just let people hand it out. Because the best way you get rid of biases is proving someone otherwise. Thomas Sowell has done a great deal of work in this field as he talks about the type of Blacks that moved to the North while slavery and Jim Crow were still a thing were of sort of a different caliber, as he would put it, than the Blacks that kind of moved after affirmative action and things like that. And they were very well respected because they were very hard workers. They were upstanding members of the community at the time. And they weren't looked down upon as, say, the Harlem was during like the Rudy Giuliani years or something like that in New York. And it's because there was sort of that filter. Like, even though there were these biases that white people had, the black people who rose among those biases were of such a high quality that the white people didn't mind them. And eventually that bias slowly started to erode away. But because you have through legislation this sort of forced removal, or this attempt at the forced removal of bias, you have much more racial tension that still lasts to this day. And I would say that applies to any bias, whether it be about Muslims or women or Hispanics or anything like that. If you try to force a bias away, even if a bias is slowly fading on its own, if you try to force it on that last bit, it's always going to make people question whether or not this group of people really would have made it on their own. And that's just going to stoke that little bit extra fear and tension like we see today. And so I'm still opposed to the legislation in any form that's trying to correct for some what's almost human nature. I'm very hesitant to use that word because of how often it's abused. Yeah. But to some extent, it is sort of in our psychology. And so any attempts at legislation are just going to further aggravate the problem as opposed to really fixing it.
Okay, so biases, yes, I agree. Biases are in our nature because we form mental schema based on what we're taught and what we're exposed to in the messages that we receive. That's how we form those biases. We don't form them in a vacuum, right? Like, so you don't form an implicit bias because you woke up one morning and had an independent thought without any external exposure about what you think about a type of people, right? That society, the messages you get, how you're raised, those are what form those implicit biases.
Can I clarify real quick, Shannon?
Yeah, of course.
Did you say independent thought?
Oh my God, you're such an ass clown sometimes.
Feeling kind of frisky, dropping like a thought.
That was nice.
Sorry, I had to.
I'm going to have to ask you for that. I'm going to have to ask you to send me that soundbite later.
Oh, Brad, come on. That's going to be all over my Twitter feed.
I'll just keep it in my back pocket.
24 hours.
that wasn't my idea for that clip. Oh, kind of, sort of.
I knew it wasn't Steve. Kyle's the problem. Everybody knows that. Okay, so back to implicit biases. You don't form them in a vacuum. You get them through societal exposure. You get them through the messages that you receive from friends and families and people that are in your cohesive social group for the most part. Those are the people that have the most influence on you, to a certain degree media, but I'd argue that the media you're exposed to has a lot to do with your cohesive social group. Now, because those implicit biases are important in the decisions that we're making, I agree to a large extent with what you just said. And I think that we're kind of talking cross purposes, but essentially we're making somewhat of the same argument, because I don't think, like I said, somebody should be over your shoulder telling you what decision to make so that you can get an even 50-50 split. I'm not a proponent for affirmative action. I mean, you brought these up a couple of times, and I think that I've mentioned that, you know, I'm not on that team. Now, what I'd argue, this is, let me see if I can more succinctly put why I think feminism in the form that I've mentioned it is necessary. Because it's been damaged. It's been damaged by the types of things that you've mentioned. It's been damaged to a point that it's a dirty word. People are afraid to say, I'm a feminist. Because if you say, I'm a feminist, immediately it's imbued with so much just disgusting thoughts about things that people saw on YouTube or things that people saw on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, right? About, you know, feminazis and people who want there to be an even 50-50 split of women everywhere, and people who are out protesting Jordan Peterson just for no reason, and who want to keep babies from men but still want equal rights, and, you know, we just want to have sex with whoever we want, and we want your jobs, and we want to keep the babies, and we want your child support, and the list goes on. That's what people think. Now, the reason that I think that feminism, in my version, the one that I'm trying to articulate, perhaps not as well as I could, is necessary, is because that needs to be counteracted, and the social culture needs to be filled with feminists who are more egalitarian, feminists who want equal opportunity, understand that there's differences between men and women, advocate for the things that women are particularly affected by, and help perpetuate the culture so that that egalitarian nature can continue in the vein that it's currently on, so that that path can continue to be cleared. Because, and here's a point that I think is important, because that poison has happened, there's going to be a backslide as a reaction. There's going to be people who say, see, look, that's what happens. That's what happens. And there's a backslide because people rally against it because it's no more about equality. It becomes about something very, very different, and that's distasteful. And that's the reason that these types of conversations should be happening. Does that make sense? Can you relate to any of what I just said there?
Yeah, I think I get a little bit better what you're trying to say.
Okay.
And
I just wanted to fight. I wasn't ready.
No, I understand the wanting to counteract social influences that people find harmful. And I believe I understand to a great extent the want to legislate them. And I think that it's not wrong to try and overcome some social problems with legislation, because obviously some of them are solved by legislation. I just think this comes down to, when you talk about the status quo, I think that's what I'm most finding troublesome, because I'm not saying that the status quo is seeking a 50-50% or that that's what you're talking about. Right. My problem is more so that even though the status quo is something much more mild, it's still something that, even it's good in its intention, you know, like a lot of things, but the reaction, I think, when we look at it in a lot of different senses, like if you talk to someone, like, again, if you read some of Thomas Sowell and if you read some of Christine Hofsummer, you can see that these things that were well-intentioned have ended up having negative results because the backlash to what their intended effect has been far worse than anticipated.
I feel like you just said the exact same thing that I just said.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. We do keep. I know. It's
say the exact same thing, only you worded it just slightly better than me, pragmatic culture. It's probably it's Thot, though. I'll do better next time.
No. It's just that it's so hard to try and find that. It's the balance. It's trying to find the golden mean that I don't think advocating for the status quo is the mean. And I don't mean that in like terms of affirmative action. I think the status quo itself is just a bit too far. And so when you say if you're a feminist who's trying to advocate for like the status quo and like what it's at right now and try to keep that. In
your mind, is status quo like third wave feminism?
No, not even. I'd say it's.
What is the status quo, so I can understand what you mean?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even, because most women aren't third wave feminists. I mean, back when he was actually relevant, Milo Yiannopoulos would constantly make the point that most third wave feminism, or feminism as a label in general, has sort of been dying out. And so I would just, it's not that I think. I just lost a thought there.
It's not,
but no,
it's not that I
the
think.
thought's still here. The thought's still here.
Oh,
you did not lose the thought.
It still comes back to me to very much where, when you can try to, where seeking a voluntary change in a society, I still find to be something that's more amicable. And I don't think even the status quo, even the very mild status quo we have right now, is doing that. And I think a lot of the social movements are still very much in this mindset of, if we legislate it, people will think it's truth, even if it's such a minor degree of legislation. And this goes back to, again, when I said there's like that tiny little bit of libertarian left in me. It comes back to like freedom of association and private property rights and all this sort of, libertarian word salad I could throw out. But it just comes back. I think people should just be left to be shitheads if they're going to be shitheads and face the reaction of this. And maybe the reaction is not that bad and they get to go on being shitheads for a little bit longer. And, we can all agree that's bad. But if the process isn't slow and gradual, it's going to be much more effective than even just the tiniest little bit of nudge from government. And so that's what I'd still like to prefer to see.
You prefer like a feminist turtle to a feminist hare. Tortoise to a hare. That's what you're saying, because you think that these changes need to happen gradually through innate social reform. Like, society will just level itself out.
Not that it'll level itself out.
So you're just opposed to legislation. You're not opposed for people advocating for this type of social change. How, this is a question that I think is interesting. How do you exact social change without some manner of legislation against a group, for a group of people that's clearly been bigoted against in the past, or discriminated against, or has been oppressed to a certain degree, to a very obvious degree? I mean, we couldn't even vote until 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So how do those change if they hadn't been legislated by a social pressure? Social pressure is what caused that legislation, right? Mm-hmm. People don't just legislate because let's do it and see what happens. Like, it's social pressure that causes legislation in a democratic society. So how would you propose us just sitting back going, all right, well, you know what? We'll just wait for society to level itself out. It'll take time. Well, we'll just wait. Feminism isn't necessary. There's no need to advocate. We'll just sit here and wait.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's just going to level itself out. I think there's a larger conversation to be had here about, is society equal? Should it be? Will it naturally tend towards that? What I'm just saying is that if you want to make something socially acceptable, I think you make it marketable. Because one of the things I think we've seen, especially...
That's a capitalist you are.
No, I mean, these type of conversations bring it out in me. But
we're very marketable, you and I.
Yes. But I think it comes down to things like, if you look at what the LGBT agenda has done in society, it has been...
the agenda.
Kyle's in the debate. I'll just sit over here.
Tag me in, Shannon. Tag me in.
Well, the movement
Kyle's in.
So, pragmatic culture. You were saying, what about the LGBTQ agenda? I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, what the movement itself has been able to accomplish, I think, from what I've seen, there hasn't been, other than legalizing gay marriage itself, there hasn't necessarily been the largest slurry of legislation for these people, as much as there was for affirmative action with blacks, and there was with women in the early 20th century. But
early stages, though.
I guess it's say that again.
It's still early stages. So right, it didn't just happen overnight for women or for African Americans, or this movement is still in pretty early stages. It's only been the past 5 years that
we're in stage 2 right now, Shannon.
Yeah, Kyle knows all about it. He's got the agenda out, as a matter of fact.
Actually,
you'll know when we're done when you wake up and everything has glitter and rhinestones on it.
I believe that we're up to 5th wave feminism. I believe that we're on the verge of having a 5th wave of feminism.
Well,
true.
5th.
I would just
figured out there was a 3rd.
Yeah, no, I think they're up to 5th now, or at least hard 4.
Jesus.
But I got to ask though. I mean, so you've actually said that you weren't into egalitarianism, and I think that most people would agree that second wave feminism equates to egalitarianism, right? So when you say generally speaking, most people would probably say that's kind of true. So I would think so. Shannon, would you agree that second wave pushed for a lot of egalitarian issues?
Okay, so I've only really been in this internet realm for about maybe not quite a year. I just realized there was a 3rd. I skipped right over the 2nd.
The 2nd, and forget the 4th and 5th. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I am. You tell me. Based on
I don't know. 4th and 5th, it involves like cyborg implants and transhumanism or something.
I'm 7 of 9. I'm the 7 of 9 of feminism.
Yeah. 7 of 9 of feminism. There you go. No, but I mean, I think most people agree that unless you're like a male chauvinist pig, there should be equal rights for genders. I mean, men and females are equal under the law. But as Shannon pointed out, there's certain things that men can do, women don't do. I mean, again, when it comes to physical things, you generally, if a female fighter can make the grade, absolutely. Right. But usually men are going to be more physical. It's a biological constraint. There's nothing anybody can do about that. But if the opportunities are the same, right, and equal pay for equal work, that's what I think what people are striving for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, May I go back to the point I was just making about
No.
the I just want to finish it real quick.
Now, feminism.
We've already doused that point in glitter and rhinestones, and it's over.
Well, just to finish up real quickly, even if they're in the early stage of their movement, I think they've accomplished a lot in terms of what they've managed to get done, because you see all these corporations changing their logos for Pride Month. They see huge endorsements coming out for Pride, whether they be in the form of like having homosexual or gay or lesbian representation in commercials and all these different things, and having more products catered to them. I think they've managed to do a great deal with very little legislation, because what they've done is they've made it so that corporations can make money off that. Now, whether I think that's, morally okay or not is a different discussion. But if you want to get social change, it's definitely, I think, to take a page from the LGBT movement, you make it marketable, because if you can put a dollar sign on it and corporations can take advantage of that, then they're going to be doing all your marketing for you. And so I think if you want social change, cater it to the neoliberal capitalist establishment, to sound like a Marxist very quickly. But okay, do egalitarianism. It's
Did you just have a stroke?
A minor one, very minor.
He choked on the glitter.
Yeah, some of it got in my mouth, but
well,
get used to it.
That's your problem. You need to focus on all of it getting in your mouth next
Just
time.
swallow. Don't spit swallow.
Sorry.
When it comes to equal pay for equal work, again, I think if you didn't have a legislation like that and you allowed women to replace men in the workforce, then you'd see a much greater shift in terms of, women's representation in the workplace and things. So it's kind of like a trade-off. Like if you want equal pay for equal work, largely that means that you're not paying some man as much in order to make it so that he's getting paid as much as a woman. So there is no appearance of discrimination. And so you're not necessarily getting the best. And everybody's sort of kind of stagnating around middle help to make sure that really there's no apparent gender gap at their country. Well, I know there's a lot to take from. There's a lot it goes from. There's finances.
That's not how payroll works. People assert that that's how payroll works. It's not. That's not how.
Yeah, no, I get my friend's a finance major at Georgetown. He gets into this with me, so I know it's not that simple. But
I work in HR at a really large company. That's not how
real quick, guys. I told David at the beginning of this to knock the timer off and just let you guys to take over the. You've actually been going for about 45 minutes, which is good.
Oh my god,
it was really good.
I wanted to fight with someone.
I know, but I'm gonna let you guys wrap up your positions real quick, and then we're just gonna let you guys close this out tonight. That was good. It was too good to interrupt and stop, so we just kind of let y'all go. But we'll start with pragmatic culture, only so that I can get the cheap thrill of having David, when Shannon's done, play the drop it like it's thought and take us out. But go ahead, pragmatic culture, and wrap up your.
Was that Skype that died? What happened? Now see, wait a second. Your Skype just dropped me from the whole call. So give me a second. Yeah, you guys left the call. So that like took you out of the whole. Luckily, we didn't stop streaming. So hey, there's you're still. Why are you reading it? They can't hear you. You're on, but they can't hear you, Kyle. They can only hear me right now. Give me a second. Right. You got dropped it like a thought. Skype dropped you. Skype dropped me, rather. Let me pop you in real quick.
At least this is a video. And then no
Now we get feedback. Now we go. That was
I don't hear
fun.
anything. I don't hear
No,
any
I
feedback.
heard it.
What happened?
You hear
You just
anything?
switch on your video when you get a chance, Bull.
My video?
Yes.
Drop it like it's Thot.
What's coming through? We're back in. Because
Well,
we
you
just
guys,
got here.
You guys are on video. You guys are on stream.
Okay. Well, let me read this super chat real quick. It says, Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? Say you'll never leave me from beside me, 'cause I want you and I need you, and I'm down for you always. I have no clue what that is in reference to.
Sounds dirty, though.
It does. Jammy, who is Kiki? Number one. But yeah, whoever it is too, I hope that they don't ever leave you either.
Yeah, I mean, Kiki, what, why would you not want somebody as fine as Jammy?
Okay, now let's go back to Pragmatic Culture. We can start with his closing remarks.
Wait, is Kiki single now? Hook her brother up, man. She a thought?
Such a whore.
Pragmatic?
Okay, we're good, right?
I think so.
We've never been good, but we're as close.
You can hear us.
We're better.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, if people didn't hear me the first time, brief and blunt. I think the more you try to socially engineer something through means that use the government or through force of some kind, rather than allowing people to voluntarily change their preferences over what would be a longer period, is going to have rather the opposite effect of whatever social movement you're trying to install intends. And so, as such, I don't think that I think even the status quo of feminism and what it's tried to achieve has gone too far. And I mean that in even all the aspects of the sort of egalitarianism that they've tried to be achieved. I think there's hierarchies built into society to some extent that, even if they're a product of our bias, are there, and trying to root them out through ways that aren't, through ways that are explicitly hostile towards them, is going to end up, again, doing more harm than good, even if it's the most minor of thing, because people take notice and you're displacing someone, and that someone could be a voice that ends up turning the whole thing on its head. And it has, and that's been the case with a few historical collapses of empires or small social revolutions, whatever the case. But I just think it's better to let people try and work things out for themselves. And if it's truly the right, hopefully one day they'll discover it, even if it takes time and even if there's suffering in the process.
Okay. And Thought Queen.
Queen of Thotlandia. Okay, so Pragmatic Culture, thank you. I appreciate the conversation, and I enjoyed it. So first off, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So to address the question of whether or not feminism is necessary, particularly when it comes to egalitarianism and your statements regarding equality, I can understand why you would say that perhaps it's better to just wait for society to change itself, but I don't have the trust that that's going to happen. If I see inequality and I know that it's something that should be spoken up against, I will. I always will, 100%, whether it's for women, whether it's for you, or whether it's for anybody else. And I think that if more people did that, we wouldn't have to wait. So if you can model that behavior, if you can model being somebody who's being able to have good, positive conversations where you can make cogent points and you can instantiate somebody who is reasonable and rational, and we don't have to wait. That's the part. I don't want to sit around hoping that something is going to change because that might be the best way to do it. I don't have that much trust in the timeline in the future. Right now, there's problems, and I think that they should be addressed. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily means that we're going to have to legislate everybody into equality. I believe that I tried to make that clear in the argument, but I believe that we should at least raise our voices so that we can make certain that the steps that we did take aren't lost. And again, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you. I was looking for a fight. It didn't turn into as much of a fight as I wanted to. If you
Every
could call
time we never get the dumpster fire with
Nobody
her.
ever gets mean to me, right?
Can we find one person that'll just go off on Shannon for a change? Why does everybody have to be so goddamn nice to her?
I'm notorious for putting out the dumpster fires before they even start, because even Jimmy hasn't gotten one going with me yet.
God, we need to find everybody I've had come in to talk to her, like on Let's Talk About You with Shannon Q. They've all been mellow. Even the biggest one, even the one that's been known as like the biggest troll out there. She even said, "Steve, I can't do this. She's too nice."
Oh yeah.
I think
Goddess girl, yeah.
Shannon,
She's
what do you think
mean to
about this?
everybody.
Now, in the before Team Sketch actually mentioned this in the live chat, it's about 10 minutes before he said what I'm about to say. I sent this to Steve to ask him what he thought, and how would you feel about having this conversation with Sargon?
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to prepare more than 15 seconds for it, but sure. I can have this conversation with who is that the guy that everybody talks about? I've never watched one of his videos. What's he like?
You've never watched Sargon?
People talk about him all the time.
This pretty big.
Yeah. He's very anti-feminist though.
Yeah.
Is he? Okay. What type of feminist? Does he just lump everybody in together?
Also, you can also talk to King Crocoduck. We're going to be talking about standpoint theory if you want to talk about that, but especially feminist standpoint theory would be a great topic for you and KC.
Sure, I'll go watch a Sargon video and then I'll figure out what his tack is. And sure, yeah, fine.
Yeah, we had him on with Brittany Simon. It was actually one of our best discussions that we've ever had on here. I mean, it was fantastic.
That would be a really cool show to see you with Sargon over.
Yeah, we'll set that up.
All right, can I wear my fedora?
Yes, you have to wear the fedora.
Then I'm in.
Shannon, will you tip your fedora? And Dave, when she tips the fedora, play the.
I can't see her.
Sweet as we
I'm fedora tipping like a boss.
You're tipping? All right, here we go.
I'm tipping so hard.
When you're feeling kind of frisky, drop it like a thought, drop it like a thought, drop it like a thought.
Oh my gosh.
Sipping on some whiskey, drop it like a thought, drop it like a thought, drop it like a thought.
And there goes our copyright strike.
You just gotta talk over it.
And create a comment.
Pick it up.
Let's make commentary.
We're just letting it go for 15 seconds while we play our outro thing right here. So I can put videos on.
Oh boy.
I actually like this. What the hell's wrong with me? I'm not supposed to like this.
By the way, I'm pretty sure we're demonetized.
Rip.
Creative comments.
Like a feeling